If I was to ask you what Christmas means to you, I suspect that your answers, though varied, would break down into a few basic categories. Some would say, Christmas, when I think of Christmas, I think of our family gathered together. For others, especially if you're kids, Christmas is when we get to open up gifts and we see what mom and dad or someone else has given to us. Or some might say, oh, it's such a hectic time, but it's so great to be able to do all this stuff, the singing the carols, the baking and cooking and getting together and shopping. It's just a wonderful time. And others might say, well, it's magical. Christmas and music in the air. And others, if they maybe had more of a religious bent, might say, oh, it's just so nice to view the Christmas creche and to see the child and to think of how peaceful it is. My suggestion to you is that all of those answers are inadequate. Not that I want to tell you that I have the right answer and you're all wrong, but when I think of Christmas, I think of something else. I think of a line from Isaiah, and I've said this before, Isaiah is my favorite prophet because, he speaks a message of hope and light and joy and peace and all of that. But of all the things he says, there is one line taken from the readings that we use in the night, like last evening. And Isaiah says, a people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. And to me, Christmas isn't a one and done deal, but Christmas is a gift that keeps giving to us if we know what it really means. Christmas, what we celebrate, is the entrance of light into a world of darkness. It seems to me that perhaps every generation of people, especially as we get older, we look at the world and we think sort of with great reminiscence and also inexactness back when we were kids, and we think the world has gotten so much worse since we were kids. I think mainly that's because when we were kids, we didn't see the magnitude of everything around us. I know my dad used to always say, oh, the world can't get any worse than it is now. Well, if he was alive now, I think he'd change his tune. There is darkness all around us. There's no two ways. There's darkness in our own attitudes towards one another. God knows in our country, can't speak to each other even, especially if we have different political persuasions, and in the world at large. People kill each other with reckless abandon. Hatred reigns. Darkness is everywhere. And so, if today at Christmas we simply celebrate a day when we can take a break from the darkness and say, oh, today everything is like Camelot. Everything is wonderful. And then we get up tomorrow morning and we say, ugh, here we go again. We got another year of darkness and all that stuff. That's not what Christmas is about. It's not at all. Christmas is not a one-day hiatus from reality. Christmas is the day in which God brought light to our world, light to a people who walk in darkness, a light that is still present in our world if we know where to look and if we let it guide us. I believe that for many of us, we don't really give this darkness and light, and St. John in his gospel says that so well about the light and the darkness in our world, Christ being the light. But I think to a great extent, we don't appreciate just how great a gift this light is, because sometimes we're so used to walking in the darkness that we don't realize how difficult it is, how dangerous it is, how much we can be tripped up, how much we can fall without light. When I was in high school seminary down in Southern Illinois, and Southern Illinois is just full of these caves, there was a priest on our staff who was a professional spelunker. Spelunkers are people who, for no good reason, go underground. But I was one of the idiots who really enjoyed going with him. I think mainly because where the others had to duck down to go through some of these passages, I didn't. But this priest, I mean, he would go in, and we're not talking about Kartchner Caverns here, or Mammoth Cave, or any of these other things that are commercially open. We're talking about caves that have never been explored, caves that are not charted or mapped. And one of the things he did was to map these uncharted caves, unexplored caves, and a couple of us would go with him on these trips. And the one thing he always hammered home to us is never, once you're in a cave, never, ever take a single step unless you have a source of light to show you the way. And so we would bring as backup candles or flashlights, but our major source of light in those days, I'm not sure if they still use that today, in those days were carbide lamps that would hook onto our helmets. And he'd always stress, do not go anywhere. Don't take a step. And once we were down there, we realized, because in a cave, your eyes never adjust to the darkness. Never adjust to the darkness. I was in Kartchner Caverns once, and they shut off the lights to show you how dark it was. Well, you could see the exit lights, you know, and it ain't the same. In an unexplored, uncharted, unmapped cave, it is absolute darkness. We'd even go on overnight trips in the cave with this priest, and he'd always tell us, now, if you have to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, although upon reflection at my age now, it was more likely that he would than we would, always flashlight, candle, carbide lamp, never take a step. That came home to us one day when this priest from town took, not our priest, but another priest, took a group of kids into one of the caves. And he told them to bring lights. Well, they brought flashlights, candles that they found in the drawers of the kitchen at home. Batteries probably half dead already. When they didn't come back, their parents got nervous, and they called around and finally notified this priest on our staff, who contacted the 2 or 3 of us that were used to going into caves with him. And for us, at that age, 17, 18, 19, it was the greatest thing, this cave rescue. And so we went into this cave that they were in, and we finally found them. Some were smart enough to stay exactly where they were because all of their light sources had extinguished. Some, though, thought they could make it back to the surface. They were the unfortunate ones, because when we found them and the paramedics came, there were several with broken legs and arms, abrasions, Some were in shock. And that's when I realized, if I didn't before, how impossible it is to walk in darkness if we do not have light. What we celebrate today is not just the birth of a child, because tomorrow that's done. What we celebrate today is the birth of a child who grew up and gave his life for us, who experienced passion and death and resurrection, and then gave us his Spirit to stay with us, because when Christ came, light came. And now, light is always present to us, and we never need try to walk in darkness again. Whether that's in relationship to one another, whether that's to live in hope in a world that seems so bent on self-destruction, there is light in our world. It may at times seem very feeble, flickering only, but the light is there. And that's what, as Christians, makes us people of hope rather than people of despair. Christ is the light come to us to show us the way. And so, I don't know how long you leave your Christmas decorations up, but I remember my mother used to always tell my brother and I, when we gather up the wrapping, now make sure you don't throw out anything good with the wrapping paper. That's when she finished telling us, refold it, we can use it next year. So when you pack away your stuff, don't pack away the light of Christ. That is there for us. It's there for you. And you can find that light in the sacraments, in the words of Scripture, in your prayer. That light is essential. You don't need to fall on your journey to God. You may trip a few times, but that's only because we sort of don't follow the light always. But just look for the light. Let the light show you the path. Let the light show you the way. We are gifted today with the light that will never end. Use it. Use it in your daily lives. What we celebrate here is a moment. When you leave the doors of church, when you get up tomorrow and the next day and the next, that's the way we live out our lives. Not here on the mountain. We live it out every day. That's when we need the light. May God's birth into our world bring light to your lives. May it show us ever so clearly the way to God.